Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us. I'm Gabby Antonacci with the Illinois State Museum, and we're here at the Research and Collection Center to learn more about a vital piece of Springfield history that often gets overlooked, the 1908 Race Riots. I'm here with Dr. Brooke Morgan today, and she's going to tell us a bit more about the event. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Gabby.
I understand, Brooke, that you have a piece of an artifact that was uncovered during a dig at an excavation site from one of the houses that was burned. Can you tell us more about it?
Sure. So the 1908 Race Riot was a horrific event in Springfield that lasted several days in August of 1908. At that time, anti-Black sentiment had been growing in Springfield, and a white woman, Mabel Hallam, falsely accused a Black man of attacking her. And she later identified George Richardson as her supposed attacker. Richardson was arrested, and after he was arrested, a white mob gathered at the county jail calling for the release of the Black prisoners so that the mob could lynch them in their own form of justice. The mob took to the streets and burned Black-owned businesses and homes and terrorized the poorest area of Springfield, then known as the Badlands. The mob lynched two Black men, Scott Burton and William Donegan. And after the violence ended, many Black people left Springfield for good. The event was a major catalyst for the establishment of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Over 100 years later, archaeologists found the remains of some of the burned houses in the Badlands. The archaeological site was discovered during Springfield rail improvement projects. Because the railroad could potentially impact the site, archaeologists needed to excavate and document this important part of history. Remains of 5 burned houses were excavated during this project. Archaeologists did a lot of research into historical documents and found that many of the excavated houses, though previously owned by white people, were now owned by landlords and did not have any tenants listed on those properties. So they were rented. We may not know for sure who is living in them because of this. But we can learn about the people who lived in the houses through the objects they left behind. Today we're looking at an artifact from one of the houses called House E, and it's a burned slab of limestone that was part of the top of a small wooden dresser. Limestone is a very common material in Illinois, and we can even see some of the fossils that are still remaining in the limestone here and over here as well. You can see that the limestone's very cracked and broken. There are scorch marks and soot from the fire. The fire had to have been extremely hot in order to cause this type of damage to the limestone. The contents of the dresser were also recovered by archaeologists. These included burned fragments of women's clothing, such as dress, a skirt, a blouse, petticoats, and stockings. Buttons, pins, and buckles were also found with the dresser. The fabrics were part of a seasonal summer wardrobe of a young Black woman who lived in this house. Archaeologists learned from this dresser and its contents that the woman who lived in this house cared for her clothing and her appearance and was striving for middle-class respectability. This paints a very different picture of the Black residents of the Badlands than what was reported at the time of the 1908 Race Riot. These artifacts help give voice to people who were trying to succeed in a society that was often openly hostile and racist towards them.
Thank you very much, Brooke, for sharing that with us. What I would like to know more is, how do we know that this is limestone?
That's a great question. So you can actually see on the dresser some impressions of fossils that are called brachiopods. That's because hundreds of millions of years ago, during the Paleozoic, Illinois and this area of the Midwest was under a tropical shallow sea. And so these are marine creatures that had a hard shell, and when they died, they would fall down to the bottom of the sea, and over time, the outside of their shells would mix together and they would compress, and over time it formed limestone. And sometimes in limestone, you can see the fossil impressions of different marine animals. And that's what you're seeing here, are marine animal impressions that are hundreds of millions of years old.
That's awesome. I hope that we find out who owned this dresser, and I hope that you all keep learning more about the 1908 race riots. I know that I learned a lot with Dr. Morgan today. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Morgan, and thank you for joining us, everybody.